Horror films have evolved. From 70s slashers, 2010s ghost stories, and contemporary elevated horror, Hollywood has changed its scare tactics as audience fears have shifted. In 2017, Jordan Peele released Get Out to critical and commercial acclaim. The film manipulates the horror genre and influences the Hollywood landscape, awarding it a key moment in the history of horror. Popular films often reflect cultural concerns and opinions. Bridget Cherry wrote, horror films tap into the cultural moment by encoding the anxieties of the moment into their depictions of monstrosity. 1954's Godzilla is possibly the most famous example of this, the titular monster being an allegory for the threat of nuclear warheads. Paranormal Hollywood films from the 70s, such as The Omen and The Exorcist, found their antagonist in the Christian devil himself. Since then, US Christianity levels have decreased, and so too has the fear of Satan. Contemporary Hollywood possessions are usually done by unorthodox demons or deceased humans, as popularized by James Wan in the Conjuring and Insidious franchises. Wan began with the viciously painful Saw franchise and transitioned to the paranormal throughout the 2000s. This makes him a great example of another cultural shift, the transition from body to mind. Hollywood horror has always been dominated by external physical threats. Take slashers such as Halloween and Friday the 13th, where the protagonist escapes being hacked to pieces. Creature features like Alien and The Thing, being eaten alive. The threat was always suffering, then death. After its peak in the late 20th century, filmmakers have given greater focus to fates worse than death. Late 2000s and early 2010s horror was dominated by zombie takeovers and paranormal possessions, both of which featured the ejection or destruction of the host conscious whilst the parasite wears away their body. Get Out recontextualizes possession as a sci-fi element. The victims of Get Out are subdued by the antagonistic Armitage family before having their brain removed and replaced by the brain of the highest bidder. Post-surgery, the body is controlled by the parasite brain, whilst the original host's consciousness is forced to exist as a dormant passenger. Whilst losing your body is a horror of its own, the true horror is the part of you that remains. The same feeling arises if you imagine waking in a straitjacket and padded room, except there's a screen showing someone else wearing your skin. The victims are surgically possessed by another human. However, this process is more like the zombie than the ghost. Zombies, or zombies, find their origins in Haitian folklore. The animated dead, the zombie cadavre, is made when the part of oneself, the gros bon ange, a concept that can be named consciousness, soul, or personality, is captured. Without this, a person can be forced to do anything, as they are no longer in control of their body. As this myth originates from the 17th century, many suggest it's a metaphor for the capture and dealings of Africans in the transatlantic slave trade. This further strengthens its connection to Get Out, as the film critiques the current treatment of black people under white liberalism. The cultural image of zombies has since spurred off into flesh-hungry, brain-dead, rotting husks. The threat is the destruction of the body, being devoured, and awakening as a single-minded force of hunger. Get Out pulls zombies back to their roots, psychological terror. And horror movies to come would follow and explore the idea of losing control, consciously losing your mind, futile to stop it. Since Get Out's success and subversion of the zombie film, many horror filmmakers have explored the fear of losing your mind in different ways, almost all of which fall under the category of elevated horror, which rose to dominate since the late 2010s. Artem Vareskin details that elevated horror films are concerned with social values and intimately reflect the protagonist's inner journey, usually their descent. The two films Vareskin analyzes in their essay are Hereditary and Midsommar, both by Ari Aster. Hereditary follows the destruction of a dysfunctional family as they suffer the supernatural influence of their grandmother long after her death. Midsommar follows Dani, who grieves the death of her entire family. A Swedish cult takes advantage of her until she becomes fully indoctrinated. All of Aster's films explore minds stretched to their breaking point, but he isn't the only one. Brandon Cronenberg, son of body horror maestro David Cronenberg, leaves his protagonist in arguably far worse states than death. In Possessor, protagonist Taja is slowly stripped of all her empathy and human connection until she's an emotionless, clinical killer. In his follow-up Infinity Pool, protagonist James is coerced into committing inhumane acts and questions his own existence as a human until he feels unable to rejoin society. In Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse, the two lighthouse keepers experience the slow dissolution of their mental stability until they're unable to distinguish reality from nightmare. Horror directors used to be concerned with what makes us lose our body, our life. Now they're more entranced by what makes us lose our minds, our humanity. When speaking on horror cinema and audience reactions to it, Michael J. Collins concludes, "Our fears are not as much of death as they are with our own physical selves." Horror reflects our real-life fears, which gives the genre a powerful spot in the Hollywood landscape. The genre was already well on track in its fascination with the mind, but Get Out sits as a landmark, propelling that journey forward. Jordan Peele captures the mind of contemporary horror pioneers who've expanded these ideas of a personal, living hell.